There's good data and worrying. The good first. The US Embassy in Delhi has claimed that record-smashing 140,000 student visas have been issued in 2023 to Indians, a huge hike since 2022. A record for the third consecutive year. According to their data, Indian students now constitute almost 1/4 of the entire foreign students studying in the United States. A stunning reminder of the aspirations and excellence of the Indian students and the great American dream. Many seem to have. But amid all this, there's also shock and grief. One after the other, as 2 Indian students have died in the US in less than 48 hours. One of them, a 25-year-old student working part-time, was brutally struck, hammered at least 50 times by a drug addict, hammered repeatedly even after he was dead, killed in a heinous act. The second, Neelacharya, was found dead in Purdue University campus, even as his family took to social media appealing for any information about him when none of his whereabouts were known. We don't know the circumstances around the death yet. Probe is underway. If we just look back at 2023, there have been shocking crimes against Indian students in the United States. Hard to forget Chanvi Kandula's case in Seattle, killed by cops. They were caught mocking her death. Varun was stabbed at a fitness center while coming out in Indiana. The accused said he looked weird. Sai Shvira shot dead at a gas station in Ohio. There are more to mention. And all these students are remembered as promising, ambitious, full of life. We're trying to look at some big questions today and understand the context of all that is being witnessed. It's extremely important to understand the context of all of this. We ask some unanswered questions, and to answer all of that, we have with us right now Rashmi Samant, who's a former student union president for the Oxford University and a human rights activist. J.K. Tripathi, former ambassador. Manju Sharma, senior university guidance counselor for the B.D. Samani International School. And also Vibhuti Jha, an ex-Republican candidate for the New York Assembly. Thank you very much, all 4 of you. We'll be joined by one in a while from now. But first question to you really, J.K. Tripathi. Ambassador, if you could help us to understand what really is the context of what we are witnessing right now.
Well, Neha, I feel that there might be 3 types of reasons behind it. One is there is racism is rising in US, and when I say racism is rising in US, there is some sort of ultra or far right elements in youth who are not employed. Unemployment is also rising, and they get frustrated, and their frustration pours on the on the persons or on the youth. They think they are snatching their jobs. So basically, that is one. Second is, as you have seen, addiction, and third is most of the youth in USA now, they are feeling that their jobs are being snatched by the by the students of foreign origin, and especially browns, because blacks, they don't have that much fear of blacks. But brown, when it comes to brown, that means students coming from Asia, from Middle East, because they are not distinct or distinguishable by the facial features. So, and since Indians form, as you have rightly said, about 1/4 of all the foreign students studying in USA. So Indians become a natural target. That is why these murders, I will say brutal murders, have been on rise in USA, where the biggest sufferers are Indian students. Yes, Neha.
J.K. Tripathi, Thank you so much, Ambassador, for making those points. Very, very crucial points being made, huge allegations and perspective that would need responses from the US as well. We'll try and get voices from there. I'm also being joined by Rashmi Samant right now. Rashmi, you have been heading a student's body, a student's union. You've been a president for that. How do you look at all that's been reported over the last 1 year, including over the last 48 hours, the crimes that are being reported against Indian students? What's your perspective on this? What's the context that you see around this?
Well, I don't definitely see this as an isolated element. It's not an isolated incident. Whilst we don't know how Neil passed away and the report is yet to come out, in other cases, you can clearly see that there was an element of hate crime, there was definitely an element of racism, and there was also this element of jealousy that came in from the fact that Indian students do so well, not just in academia, but also in the job market afterwards. They just stick to their lane, they get their degrees, they're good students, and then they get some of the high paying jobs as a result of that, as a result of their hard work. And that is somehow adversely seen abroad by native populations there who feel some sort of resentment. Though they have equal opportunities if they want to put in the hard work, but they see the fact that we put in the hard work and we get out there and we achieve as a point of resentment.
Rashmi,
I think you can see the case very well wherein an
Rashmi,
Indian
as a
student was
president of
killed.
a student union body, have you, the students you have interacted with, have you felt uh, such, have you had such experience? Have you been at the receiving end of such experiences?
I have personally been at the receiving end of, racist slurs, comments, and, an entire barrage. It was so severe that it was even discussed in the Indian Rajya Sabha that an Indian student who makes it to Oxford on her merit and wins the presidential election on her merit is then subjected to a lot of racist remark and is put in a situation where she has to fend off racist attacks. Yes, I personally had to face it despite being a student who's done well in life and who's worked her way all through to those positions. I've personally faced it. I've seen my peers face it. I've seen my seniors face it before my time, and I see my juniors continue to face it after my time. So there is definitely a pattern. But we've never used discrimination as an excuse not to excel. We double down, we work harder, we try twice as hard, to get half as far. And we've always, worked really hard, put our heads down, and never complained that there's discrimination or that we are treated otherwise. But these cases wherein students are being found dead, this is concerning, because what I faced might just be harassment on a different scale, but at least, me and others like me, we made it out alive. But now that students are dying, I think there is intervention that is required from the government of India, and also the Indian population generally needs to be more aware of the ongoing scenario, and also that we need to use the very fact that it is because of the Indian students that the education market in both the US, UK, and other Western countries run. We need to recognize this fact,
All right.
and we need to utilize it as leverage to ensure better, rules, regulations, and more safety for our own students. So we haven't done that, though, hundreds of millions of dollars
Okay.
from India are exported every year, and Indians form a big,
All
big,
right.
big part of their revenue stream for
Vibhuti,
universities, not
sorry,
just in the
Rashmi,
US.
I'll come back to you, Rashmi, on this. Right, let me also just get in Manju Sharma at this time. Manju, the numbers are out, the data is out. It's record number of visas that have been cleared for students in the US. 1/4 of the foreign students in the US are Indians. These are huge numbers that we are looking at. Now, in line with the numbers, these are huge numbers, and the cases at least that are being reported in terms of these killings, these murders that have been reported. What's the ratio? What's the context? Do you see any underlying concerns or patterns, or how are the universities looking at this?
Okay. Thank you, Sneha, for asking this question. First of all, my deepest condolences to the families, and I hope that they are respected and supported during this tough time and the difficult time of their life. Having said that, I agree with what my former panelists have spoken, Mr. Tripathi and Ms. Rashmi, that there are some segments, where they find this, and at the same time, the Indian students are really excelling, and they may be a harm when the recession is going on. But at the same time, I would say that the universities are supporting a lot to these students. And I must also say that on their campuses also, because I visited many universities across the globe, including US universities. And I found that, they have blue lights on campuses. The blue lights are like, if you are in a distress, you can just push a button, and it has a tracker also of the, like, wherever you are. And the police of the campus, the state police or the city police, as well as, fire brigade, all these reach within a 1 minute or 2 minutes. At the same time, they have sidewalks also that you can reach out to any, guards who are over there. The police, they call actually to this. And you can say that I am not feeling safe, and can you drop me to the other place of the campus, And all these facilities are there. It is a lot about government policies also, because the US government, the federal government, they promised many times that they will look into these matters, but they have never controlled the gun culture. They could not control the shooting. And because of that, our students are suffering a lot, and we are losing them. At the same time, I would also say that, yes,
Why
as a
do you say
guidance
that?
counselor, I
Why do
guide
you say
to
that?
students.
I mean, what do you mean when you say Indian students are suffering a lot because of the gun culture there? Could you explain?
I would say, because not only the Indian student, but across everyone. Because if the shooting is taking place, the person who is shooting doesn't take care whom that person is shooting. Because 1/4 population is Indian, so of course the probability of Indian getting into that is more. And at the same time, I agree to my fellow panelists that Indians are really intellectual,
Okay.
hardworking, sincere. They get more opportunities, and that is how they are always at the eye of the other person.
Okay.
Because they may not get those opportunities which they are looking at. That is what I would say. And
all right, I'll get back to you, ma'am. I'll get back to you, ma'am. I'll get back to you. Let me just get in the introductory remarks from Vibhuti Jha, the ex-Republican candidate for New York, who joins us right now. Thank you very much, Ms. Vibhuti Jha, for joining us. Now, let me just try and explain, Mr. Vibhuti Jha, what the other panelists have said at this point. Some of them, including a former ambassador, has raised concerns over what seems to be domestic developments, political developments in the US. They've also raised concerns over gun culture. And then we've also been joined by Rashmi Samant, who's also raised issues about how students, time and again, have faced racial discrimination from fellow colleagues and others. How do you look at what's really happening now in terms of the crimes that are being reported against Indian students?
Thank you very much for having, and delighted to be with the same platform as Rashmi ji and the former ambassador. I have been in the US since 1991, so a little bit I know is the fact that, yes, we are a target group of people. A senator once told me that we love you Indians as immigrants to this country because you are professionals, you are hardworking, you are highly educated, you are in the highest median income, you have family values, you take care of your children, you are not a law and order problem anywhere in the world as an immigrant community, and you ask for nothing. As a result of which, there was a lethargy or set in us. We don't care. The result is that we have remained unengaged with the communities that we live in. And as a result of which, we have become a source of target for people. Yes, that is a question of concern. But insofar as this particular tragedy is concerned, just terrible incident that happened, I have read, it is a frustration of a madman who was getting benefits from this student who denied him at some point in time, and out of frustration, he attacked him. So if you look at the culture of violence in the US, it is very rampant. There's nobody denying that. The gun culture is something, I have a different point of view. because this country has been, revolted against the British. And they got their independence much faster than Indians got because they had the gun in hand. So that's why the British general who lost the war, he was posted to India, and the first thing he did in India was to take away the gun rights of people. Think about it from that perspective.
Okay,
And if it comes to violence...
Mr. Vibhuti Jha, allow me to please interrupt you. You've made an important point. I need to ask another question just to take that forward. When you say that you saw this a case of a madman attacking an Indian student, when we look at and I'm asking this with great responsibility because you have been part of the system there, it's important to understand the context. As somebody who's contested elections there, the sequence of events that we are seeing, the different cases that have been reported, do you see them as targeted killings against Indian students, or is this a crime concern in US across nationalities? And that is important to differentiate.
I totally agree with you. There's a very, very valid question. Are we target? Probably yes. This particular incident was not a targeted Hindu guy. It could have been a Latino. It could have been anybody, because this was an act of a madman. This is a tragic incident. But yes, you are right. There are many places that we get confused with what we are not. I am confused as Pakistani or a Muslim at times. So do I have to be careful? Of course I have to be careful. But the point of the matter here is that, are we targeted in the manner that Semitism is happening, anti-Semitism is happening? Probably not, but we are next in line. And that's why I always implore upon Indians living here, get engaged with community activities, get engaged in the societies you live in, whether as a parent-teachers association in school, what is being taught to children, or as a professional working in a successful environment. That's the important part here. Am I a target? I do not know. But could I be a target? Yes, I can be. So it is a very important point that there is...
All right, J.K. Tripathi. Sir, let me just get in former Ambassador J.K. Tripathi, please, at this point.
Yeah.
Hello, yes.
J.K. Tripathi, this really... let me just take it also beyond just religion and see it in context of nationalities. And that is also important to be seen. We're looking at numbers that are record high. And this is, of course, reason to celebrate. These are not numbers that are being offered at free. These are students that are excellent at what they're doing. They have earned their admissions as they go into US with a big American dream. It's been a true tale for so many Indians and so many nationalities across the world. But are there some cautionary notes now that Indians and parents, students need to really look at? Are there some cautionary notes, red flags that we need to look at? Or is this now just hysteria and being made out of nothing?
See, no, it is not a hysteria, but I would like to suggest a few things. First thing is, whenever an Indian student goes abroad, especially in US, he or she must register himself or herself with the Indian embassy or consulate, so that they immediately know who has come, and in case of need, they can, one. Two, as Mr. Jha has very rightly said, these students, they probably should have regular contacts with the Indian leaders of Indian associations or Indian bodies, so that everybody knows that such and such a student is in such a such condition, he is good, or she is good or bad. So, and of course, student unions and university security people, as Mrs. Manju Sharma has said, that there are, there are phone booths, etc., and you push a button and you can, and the security or police or fire brigade can approach you within no time. So, in order to make your stay safe, in nutshell, these three things: you get yourself registered in Indian mission or consulate nearby. Secondly, you get You get, you keep in touch with the university security authorities. And thirdly, and perhaps the most important, you keep a close contact with the Indian associations there and leaders of the associations, especially those who are
Right.
in the politics, because that will enable you to immediately contact those people and rush the help. So that is what comes to my mind. And in the long run, yes, American youth are to be taught or to be convinced that Indians are not there to get their job and all that. That comes later. That is in long run. But immediately
Okay.
these steps
Sir,
have to be taken according to me.
no, very important
Yes,
points.
Neha.
Thank you, Ambassador Tripathi. Rashmi Samant, at least two panelists here seem to be raising one concern, and that is engagement with the local communities. As a student union head, president, and as a student yourself, do you see that as a big concern? The lack of it, quite frankly.
Well, Sneha, I do believe that engagement is absolutely necessary. When I was at the University of Oxford, I did not know that you could register yourself with the embassy when you first, land up in a different country, that you need to do something like this, or there is some provision of this sort. Whilst, if you compare this with Chinese students, then there's a mandate for Chinese students to register with their embassy every time they travel abroad for studies, for pursuing higher studies. But the situation has changed now, 3, 4 years down the line, it has changed. And the foreign ministry is evolving that way, giving in more diktats for what the embassy is supposed to do overseas, and the kind of charge that they need to take in terms of securing the interests of the students abroad. So I do feel that more engagement is necessary. And I'm optimistic because during my time, I have seen the level of degree of
Right.
engagement increase substantially. It is substantial to the level to which, within 1, 2 years, the degree of engagement increased. And I'm hopeful that it will in the future. But that being said, there is a necessity for a stronger push to be made for that kind of connection to be established. Because we are, after Chinese students, we are the second largest ethnic group which goes abroad to pursue higher education. So, that being put into perspective, it becomes even more critical for embassies to start connecting more with students and to have that active bond so that
Absolutely.
the
In
student
fact,
community knows who to approach in case there's a missing student, or if there is some sort of a threat to hate crime, and that they can deal with it in a better format. And I think it's a great symbiotic partnership. Even the embassy can do a lot of activities with the help of the students. I've seen that happen in London. So I think that needs to happen more, and there are good signs because it has started in
Rashmi,
the
one
recent
question.
past.
Do Indian students know? Do they know? Do they have resources around them? Do they have associations around them that they could reach out to in times of trouble, particularly as these? How does it work? Are there strong linkages between a student and a family that lives overseas?
Usually, there are, organizations abroad which have existed historically, which have connection to India and to certain communities as well. I think religious communities do become an important part of what organization you belong to. I remember when I was a student in Oxford, many students used to go to a certain temple and they would be associated with it, be it the ISKCON, be it the Swaminarayan Mandir, and there would be a community around them as a result of that. Then there was a National Hindu Students Forum.
Okay.
Then there was the Hindu HSS. There was the
Okay.
Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh, and there were a lot of such
All right.
organizations which existed. And such organizations exist on a religious
All
basis
right.
for all religions. And I've seen students participate and become a part of that and have that community
And
as
is it only religious?
a
Are there
blanket around.
also other social cultural groups that are beyond religion?
Yes, there are linguistic groups as well. One of the largest groups which was around me was the
And that's
Kannada
perhaps
Association.
important
I
to
come from
mention as well.
Yes, I come from
Correct.
Karnataka. Kaho was around me. So there are these linguistic associations as well, Kannada, Telugu, and different languages,
Right.
different regions. So
Okay.
there are these communities. But it's the prerogative of the student to reach out to them.
Absolutely.
It is not a end-to-end basis that if you go
Fair
abroad,
enough.
you will
Absolutely.
inherently become a part of any of these. So I think more greasing is
That's
required
important.
so that every student ends up becoming a part of one of these organizations by default, so that they have a default cover, which does not exist right now.
Absolutely.
Few students out of their own interest then do become part
Okay,
of
let
it.
me just get in Manju
So that-
Sharma. Right, Manju Sharma. Now, if you look at some cases, that we have reported, and we're just looking at what has happened, say, since 2023, we're not even going before that. Now, there have been some cases, there were action that was taken, but we're trying to understand. Are families coming and asking you, is there an inherent problem? Of course, numbers show that people really want to go there, students are eager. Of course, there are huge opportunities. There's great standards of education there as well. But when you look at, say, Indian student's body being mocked at by the cops there, or a man being attacked, Indian student being attacked because he looked weird and the attacker felt it was the right thing to do to stab him. I mean, is there an underlying problem here? Do people come and ask you these questions as they are trying to get their children into top colleges in the US? Is this a concern at all?
Yes, absolutely. It's a concern. And when such cases come, sorry, that is the time, like, the parents' concern rise like anything, and they ask these things. And sometimes, after the admission and everything, also they cancel. I remember, like, so many cases, in fact, where the parents said that, no, I am okay to send my child to this particular country and not this. And US had come in that because of the gun culture, they feel the child is not safe, and I have like only one child or two kids, I cannot make this child life on stake. So such questions definitely come. Whenever they come, like they ask for certain universities, and I have a lot of workshops where I inform them about different universities, and about the pros and cons also, facts also about these. And when the facts comes, of course, as I said earlier also, the universities are supportive, but there are certain issues with the government policies. In fact, today also, I have spoken with my students who are studying at Purdue University, and I have asked about their whereabouts also, how they are, what is the environment in the university. I have also spoken to the representative of the university who represent India.
What
and
do
I
they
have
think?
spoken,
What have they told you? No, it's important.
So
Could you share? What did
yes.
they tell you? Did they share any
So,
concerns? Or were
so
did they say this was this was an isolated case?
absolutely, it was an isolated case, and my students said, see, that this case can happen anywhere, whereas the university is very supportive, and the entire Indian community of these students have gathered, and they are taking care of each other. They have all spoken to their families also that they are absolutely fine. There is no issue. Yes, they are concerned.
Okay.
They also want to know that what exactly happened to the child, how that the child is found after 2 days all alone, and then they found that he's not surviving now. What happened to that is also there. And of course, the kids are worried, but at the same time, they have full trust in the university. And they said that we are absolutely fine, ma'am. You need not to be worried about. We are all
Important
together,
point.
and we also want to know what
Absolutely.
happened, so that
Last
we can
minute
see
left.
what is the
Let me
next
just
course
take
of
this
action.
question to Vibhuti Jha. Mr. Vibhuti Jha, if you could just answer this one question, and I possibly can give you just about a minute on this. How is the US looking at this? Is this a concern that US is looking into? Is this a worry for the US authorities, particularly when crimes against Indian students are being reported? It's a huge chunk of the population in US. Is this a major concern for the US authorities?
It is. It has become. I'll tell you the reason why. Because Indians are the students who are coming here. They have the ability, capability, education, and the mental capacity to be good. So these are all the STEM guys who are coming here. 1.4 million people who have been given the visa to come here is a recognition of the fact that India is the country from where people are very productive and contributing to the society. It is a matter of concern. What is important here is for parents, Indian parents to know also, Indians to know also, that when you are going to spend $80,000 per year for college tuition, board, and everything else, plus maintenance expenses, you have to remember that US universities have become what I call them Pakistani universities. They have become, so what are you sending your children to? 1.4 million will come here, but what will happen to them after they finish their education? Today, one senator was talking about the fact that Caltech gets so much of quality students, but we can't give them visa. They have to go back. So there is no job waiting for you anymore in the current scenario. So while America needs qualified people, Indian students, and I believe India is the top of the hierarchy in terms of the need-based immigration platform, there is not much being done on the immigration side. So Indians who are coming to study here, remember, drop the hope and ambition that you are going to become an American soon as you finish your education. That era is over. So unless and until we as a community team up and demand that if you are asking for 1.4 million people are coming here, you give them visas, you have to also secure their future. Those who want to go back to India, please do, because India is the new growth story. But also remember one thing to people, Manjuji was talking
we're
about
totally out of
gun
time.
culture.
Thank you very much,
Violence
Mr. Vibhuti Jha, for joining us. But also thank you very much, Rashmi Samant, J.K. Tripathi, and Manju Sharma for bringing in your perspectives. This is an important issue that we all need to look into. It is about the safety of our loved ones. It is the safety of our children, but also important to understand the context of what's really happening in the US, where domestic politics challenges the economic scenario and several other aspects may really pose challenges in what seems to be a fast-changing global environment. Thank you very much, all four of you, for joining us.